Hey guys, how are ya? Hope you're all having a fantastic evening. Tonight I'm back and I'm going to be doing another movie review. We go back to the horror genre for this one. This is a horror film from the UK, English language, released in the year 2011, directed by Alex Chandon, and this film was called Inbred. And the story to Inbred is as follows. When a group of troubled youths and their care workers turn up for a weekend in a remote Yorkshire village, they meet a bunch of strange yokels with some particularly unpleasant ways and a distinct dislike of strangers. It isn't long before blood starts spraying and body parts start flying. A deranged gore fest with humour as black as the blackest black pudding. So the movie revolves around a bunch of juvenile offenders who are sent on community service for the weekend at this very secluded Yorkshire village. So they're accompanied by two care workers who are going to fix this cottage up. It's a very rundown cottage, and the idea is to make it livable. So they get there, they start working on the cottage, and at the end of the first day, the care workers decide to reward these young people with a trip to the local pub called the Dirty Hole, which is a really funny name. But they get to the pub, and this is where they're introduced to the locals. And the locals make them feel very uncomfortable because they're very, very weird. So this is where they start to believe that something is wrong with this village. So they end up leaving the night much earlier than they expected. But the next day, there is an incident that occurs that happens between the locals and the visitors that basically results in a lot of bloodshed. So what that what that event that happens that led to the bloodshed, what that was all about is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I am going with my synopsis. Now, my thoughts on this movie. I have to thank Alex Chandon. I don't know if you'll be watching this one, but I would have to thank him for delivering one of the best horror comedies that I have seen in a very, very long time. This renews my faith in the horror comedy subgenre. Now, a lot of horror comedies lately have been lacking one thing, either the horror or the comedy. Very, very rarely does a film match both of them in equal measure, and this movie does that, and that's why I loved it so much. If you're a fan of the horror comedies, this movie is absolutely essential viewing. Now, a lot of people, or so-called professional movie critics, have criticized this film a hell of a lot, and it's really reminded me of something that I've said in the past, where you get a guy who turns on the hot water and complains that he gets burnt, or someone going on the road waiting for a bus to hit them and then complaining because it hurts too much. It's kind of like, you know what to expect. It's got a reputation, and that reputation is a reputation for a good reason. And if you hear that it's very nasty, if you hear that it's offensive, if you hear that it's a very light-hearted movie, then you go into it and you complain for those reasons. It's like an insult to your intelligence, basically. It's kind of like, you know what to expect, but you're complaining when it actually hits you. So that's why I make the reference to the bus or the hot water. And that's something that, a lot of movie critics, I don't know whether it's hatred for the genre or, hatred for the particular movie. I actually feel it's having a go at the genre, because horror is the only genre that makes you uncomfortable. And I feel that some people really can't handle that. Now, in particular, I'm going to name Mark Kermode. I respect him as a movie critic. I think he's a very intelligent man. But a lot of movies, especially horror movies, when they're said to be very nasty, he goes in and watches them and said he doesn't like them because they're nasty. If you don't like nasty movies, don't go and watch the thing. It's kind of like you see what you see is what you get. So don't complain that something is really nasty. And I just hate that sort of thing. And, each to their own. People are entitled to their opinions. But I feel it's a little bit silly to criticize a movie because it's too gory, too nasty, too offensive, when you know full well what you're about to expect. And that's what I feel a lot of these so-called professional movie critics, I think a lot of them kind of use that attitude towards this film, and that's why it's rated as 5.2 on IMDb. A lot of people kind of misunderstood what the movie was all about, and this requires you to have a sense of humor. So I think the professional critics out there need to remove the broom handle out of their ass and learn to really enjoy a film. And if you're not going to enjoy a film, then this movie is not for you. Just completely avoid it and watch something else like Schindler's List or something. But if you're like me and you like this type of horror, then this movie will renew your faith in the the subgenre that has basically released quite a few ordinary films in recent memory. Now, this movie is not going to win Oscars for the acting. It's not going to win an Oscar for best screenplay, or it's not the most original film. But what it does is simplicity at its very best. It's a movie that knows its limitations. It's not the highest budget, but the director knows full well what he is capable of, and he has confidence in what he's capable of, and he has confidence in the fact that what he is producing is something that is going to be funny and it's going to be very gory. So the gore is done in a way that it's shocking, but at the same time, as I said, there's an element to it that it's very light-hearted, so it's not going to make you lose sleep for months. It's not a film that it's going to disturb you. It will shock you because there are a few scenes out there that are quite disgusting, but it's done in a light-hearted way, a caricature sort of way. So it feels like you're watching a comic rather than watching actually something like The Manson Family. So you've got to have that particular sense of humor. It's very black humor. But if you're a fan of British black humour films like Shaun of the Dead, The Cottage, you're really going to like this one because I'm putting it right up there with Shaun of the Dead and The Cottage. For low-budget filmmaking, this is absolutely exceptional. Now, my problems with the film is that it does sort of drag towards the start. It takes a little bit of time to really get rolling, but that's no massive criticism because it's not an overly long film. It goes for 90 minutes. So that is not really going to keep your attention bogged down. But I felt that the start it took a little bit of time to really warm up. It wasn't really all that funny at the start. It wasn't all that gory at the start. But when it starts to get going, it really gets going. And that's where it really shows its true strengths. Now, the acting, as I said, it's not Oscar worthy, but they have fun in what they're doing. It's not terrible acting. I thought it was going to be a lot worse after reading some critics' reviews. But the acting was really fun. There's no character development, so they weren't difficult roles, but the movie doesn't require character development. It exaggerates the good guys, or the so-called good guys. It exaggerates them to the point where you hate them. You want to see them die in the most horrific way possible. But the beauty of this film is that they do die in the most horrific way possible. And I'm not going to give anything away, but some of the kill scenes, absolutely fantastic. As I said, some of the CGI kind of dampens it a little bit, but there are some pretty good gore scenes that are done in practical effects as well. But the CGI I have seen a lot worse. The villains were really, really cool. It's kind of like a stereotypical look at inbred villains. It's kind of like it's having a laugh at itself. That the community of Yorkshire are prepared to say, yep, everyone thinks of us as, these type of people. We're going to do that. We're going to laugh at ourselves, and we're going to show that, life is not so serious. It's very, stereotypical inbred people, the missing teeth, their deformed sort of mutant faces. And that was exaggerated, but once again, the movie is exaggerated, and it's exaggerated to the point where you're going to have a great time if you allow yourself to have a great time. The soundtrack, absolutely phenomenal. I think the theme song, E by Gum, the best theme song I have ever heard for any movie in the horror comedy. I know it's a big thing to say, but I have listened to that song so many times, and I'm sure a lot of people out there have listened to it a lot as well. I only got this a few days ago, and I've already watched it about 10 times. I absolutely love this movie, and it was a massive surprise for me. A lot of other people have criticised the ending. I thought the ending was hilarious, and once again, it made the film. It stays true to what the film was all about, and what the film's about, a certain level of unpredictability, but it is not the most original film, but it does the simple things very, very well, and it is what it promises, and that is a horror comedy. So all in all, a very, very nasty film, but at the same time, a very, very funny film. As a result of all this, as far as horror comedies are concerned, I'm giving it 5 stars. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So definitely go and watch it. It's essential viewing for anyone who likes films like Shaun of the Dead, The Cottage, and all those types of very light-hearted, nasty films. So that's my review for the English horror comedy Inbred. 5 stars, absolutely fantastic. Alright guys, that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.